What's up guys, welcome back to another devlog about LightDrifter, which is an endless racer type mobile game I originally challenged myself to finish and release all within a month. Yeah, let's just say I got distracted. So obviously it's been way more than a month and the game isn't finished yet. But to be honest, I kind of prefer it that way. Because compared to before where things felt rushed, now we actually have the time to polish and add content to the game, making sure it's a game actually worth playing once we release it. So with that said, we still progressed a lot since the last video. So let's jump right into it and I'll show you all the changes we made so far. Alright, so we ended the last video talking about how I wanted to add some feedback and sound to the game, so that's what I started off with. So my plan regarding music and sound for the game was actually pretty simple. Since for this concept, I didn't really need sound and music in 3D space, all I had to do was actually just create a sound manager that would hold all the sounds and musics of the game. Once this is done, I just create a function that would basically play the specific sound or music I was asking, and that's it. So with that done, I needed to test it out with some royalty-free music. So I went over to Storyblocks, picked some sci-fi music, and slapped it all in my sound manager, and tried it out. I ran into some errors where once the player died and the scene reloaded, the music and sound that were actually playing at the moment actually cut off and it sounded really bad. The simple fix to that was to give the sound manager a singleton pattern and make sure it was persistent between scenes. This basically just makes it so we keep the same sound manager over all the scenes. So with that all sorted out, I added some more music and made a system that would basically just pick and play a music at random and made sure it didn't play the same music twice. So that basically just sorted out all the music for the game, so now it's time to actually talk about sounds. Using the same sound manager, I added some sound effects for when the player died and when the player collected some coins. I'll have to play around with the coin collect sound in the future, trying to make it more interesting. Maybe playing around with the pitch a little bit for each consecutive coin you pick up, just like they did in Slime Rancher. So that was good enough for now. I know it's not a lot of sound, but it's actually enough for me to validate that the system was working. So when I go into the polishing phase of the game, I can add some more sounds and feedback and everything's working fine. Besides, I wanted to start playing around with particle effects, trying to make a system where you had some particles flying by really fast when the player was boosting. So after a while, in the end, I managed to sell the effect I was looking for, but it became really apparent I'm not the best when it comes to particle effects. It's also around that time that Alex added his changes to the visuals, and things are starting to look really good now. I really like the dark neon look of the environment and how it fades to black, leaving the attention of the player on the tracks where the gameplay actually is. The tracks also got a huge upgrade. They're now smoother and higher poly, so the car doesn't jitter on them now. They also have this really cool edge-like shader effect that really helps detach them from the environment. The only downside to all of this is that, well, his changes actually broke all the prefabs I was using in the level layouts I made in the previous video. But no matter, it's not like I spent a lot of time working on them anyway. Now, I have to admit, making tracks took way longer than originally expected. I know it would be one of the longer parts of making this game, but I definitely underestimated just how much time it would take. No, but really, there was one thing I was really looking forward to try and make. It's actually the last piece that was missing in the core gameplay loop. I'm of course talking about the shop, the actual reason why the player is actually collecting coins in the first place. And the one thing that actually gives off a feeling of progress and achievement, creating some retention for the game. So for the shop, what I wanted to do is give the player some customization and unlockables, like wheels, bodies, and different type of cosmetics. I also wanted to give the option to change the color of the different parts, and maybe purchase some new visual effects like trails for the wheels and different things like that. After that, we can maybe start looking at adding some boosts and upgrades for the vehicles that actually have an impact on the gameplay. Alright, so I'll just say this right now, this was actually my first time trying to make a system like that, and it turned out to be harder than I thought. Well, not the shop in question. The hardest part for me was actually designing and making the shop. Taking into account all the information actually had to be saved locally on the device for later use, since I don't want the game and shop to reset every time the player actually launches the game. So I had to keep the information simple enough to be copied to and from a binary file. Yeah, Unity does this really cool thing where it can take all the information you want and convert it to binary code. So that way, once we save the data locally on the device, it makes it hard to manipulate the information that's on the file. Alright, so for the UI, the first thing I did after making a questionable sketch for what I wanted the UI to look like was adding a game state and camera state to the managers I already had. That way there's a smooth transition between the shop and the menu. I also made it so the vehicle that we're going to customize is off-centered and the actual shop panel is going to be on the left. Then I spent some time working on a spinning feature that you can swipe your finger on the screen, making it so you can see clearly the vehicle you're customizing. And then came the actual shop. Now, I forgot to record myself making the shop, but no matter, I basically just divided the shop into 3 panels. A panel where you can buy different parts for the vehicle like wheels, bodies, and cosmetics. A panel for the skins and colors of the different parts. And finally, a panel for the different trails and effects you can purchase. Like I said earlier, I might also add a panel for the different boosts and upgrades the player can actually use that affects the gameplay. But before that, I have a few bugs I really want to fix. I ran into some issues where the camera actually got displaced when we reloaded the scene. And then there's also the car alignment when you clip the edge of the tracks. But I'll leave that for the next video. Alright, so that actually covers everything I had to show you. So that's it for this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.